Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor that today's symposium is graced by the Honorable Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman. And I now have the proud privilege in requesting the Honorable Finance Minister to address the audience. Let's put our hands together once again to welcome the Honorable Minister.
Namaskar, good afternoon. Gives me a great satisfaction to be here. As you're aware, since Monday, when the Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs week-long celebration, if I can call it so, marking 75 years of Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav. It all started off in March when the Prime Minister was in Dandi recreating the salt satyagraha. So March 2021 onwards, 75 weeks ending August 2022 is when the Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav is ongoing. It's also, of course, extended till August 23, so that the entire expanse of government, union government with the state governments, together recall this journey of 75 years of India through the various departments to see how this country has moved from where it was in 1947 to where we are today, marking 75th year. And even as we are talking about the 75th year, planning for the next 25 so that when India is at 100, we'll have a proud India which meets the aspirations of all Indians. And with the commitment and service of every citizen. And that is why when we were talking about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Prayas was also added into it. Because it's not just the government, it is the people of India who are at every instance, at every moment of challenge, rising to the occasion, joining hands with one another as well, making the government respond in such a way that lives can be better, livelihoods can be offered, and India together can grow to become that country which all of us can be proud about. The intent was very clear, the intent was also well stated. And I've been watching weeks after weeks from March 2021, the way in which Azadi message and also the progress made in the last 75 years have been taken forward by so many different agencies. But it is when we were preparing for the Finance Ministry's own week of Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav, we realized there was such a story to say, so much a variety of stories to say. And they were not just some abstract narration of policy, but all of which have a bearing on the ordinary citizen of the country. So in fact, even as we were planning for each department to do something, there were immense hesitation in some departments saying there's not much that we can go and, say there. Because we do a lot of work, but not the kind of work which is going to be, is it going to be, so much of a interesting narrative to say? So that's when each one of us realized there's actually so much to say, and to say the story of continuity, which actually formed the basis for India's economic strengths. Chief Economic Advisor rightly recalled that India's fundamentals are back again sound now, because many steps taken between 2014 and today have actually gotten us out, gotten India out of that trying situation in which we were. The double balance sheet problem, the twin balance sheet problem, the fragile FI economic, and also the way in which NPS has mounted. I'm talking about the recent past. But every so often, a decade or 15 years, we've had a cycle of issues, challenges, which every government had to face and pull India out of. So it is not so unique for us to recall that periodically, the dead wood accumulates, as it were. And it is on the shoulder of some governments to remove those dead wood and revive the economy again. So if 1991 saw one kind of, steps taken by the government, an economy being revived again, whether it is after opening the economy or even otherwise, so was the situation in 13-14. But even after pulling the economy out, removing all the undergrowth, you still had challenges. And in a way, the three major steps, I would think, which were taken, not at all aware of a COVID which will come to us. Not absolutely aware. Who would have been aware, in any case? So the three major steps taken, whether it was for reducing the corporate tax, whether it is making sure that the economy gets greatly digitized, formalizing the economy, also trying to bring in the IBC code, the GST, wherein all states came on board, the heavy lifting actually which happened prepared us for a situation which no one could imagine. And as a result, when you're looking at India periodically coming up with challenges and facing the challenge together with the people of India and coming out of it, 75 years, Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav, recalling the path that India has walked to reach where it has reached today. That today we are able to, I'm seeing in the last few weeks, the immense lot of credits that genuinely we want to take and the world recognizes. Only yesterday or day before, there was a very good article which I had read with great interest, that India today, for instance, the digitization has led to so much of innovation and so much, creativity coming into the system, that we can boast of 3 large contributions that we've made on the digital, whether it's the payment platform, whether it is the co-win platform for vaccination, and there is no harm repeating it. No other country had a systematically developed platform which could track the illness, look at vaccination, certify vaccination in both the stages, and all that available on your phone. You could just travel saying, I've got the vaccine passport in my phone. So whether it was your UPI India stack, whether it is for payments, whether it is improving small businesses to be able to access the globe with this digitized version of buy and sell, or whether it is co-win platform, you have really now told the world that pandemic or no pandemic, we are there, we are moving forward, we are showing the way in digitizing the economy. So every challenge has been met with the participation of people, and as a result of which we are seeing that collective synergy resulting in such great advantages for us as an economy. Now, I probably will deviate from the DA's own showcasing of what has happened in the last 75 years for a minute, only to come back. Now, if DEA could tell us through a video presentation what externally aided projects have done in this country, It hasn't done for one region of this country. It has done for every region of the country. So many multilateral institutions have been brought in. The funds have been very smartly raised and given for not just infrastructure building, which is very critical, which also gives jobs, but also looking at livelihood prospects in each region. So that's the way in which the economy's strength gets built or given a boost when you look at it not just as a singular project, but also every time assess what the positive multiplier will be of such a project and spread it across the country for every region to benefit from it. So if you look at that history, and I'm glad the media is here, these are the kind of stories I would think that the media, in the context of 75 years celebration, should capture, should summarize, should put forth to the people to know, so that that gives the confidence to every Indian citizen that we as a government, not just the union government, but even the governments in the state, constantly are leveraging every facility, every potential that exists for bringing in greater investment, for putting in money in the right place so that people's development is kept in mind. So when Anantha Nageshwaran can tell us by 2040 we will be a 20 trillion economy and our per capita income will be this, that's the result of all these kind of coherently brought in projects, states and center working together, and a department which actually looks at economy. So today, I'll go back to that conversation of some departments within the ministry not feeling very, what is there for us to say, ma'am? We are doing the good work. This is the big story you want to say. And 75 years, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav gives you that opportunity to tell the people of India, we are here, we are doing that kind of work which brings that development which you so want in your village. So I'm so glad that DEA brought out this particular video to show externally aided projects and the way in which these projects actually make a difference to the ground, to the people in the ground, to the economies in the ground, which will now create their own ecosystems to be able to build on it. Now, if that is one, the other ideas is another, contribution the department makes, DEA makes. And I'm glad sitting there, Secretary Ajay Seth rightly reminded me, we are at a stage where once Japan was, take a lot of aid, build your economy, but equally give a lot of aid, build others' economy. That's where India is today. So the IDEAS project you saw spans across so many different countries, really making a difference to their livelihood requirement, giving infrastructure support, and quietly doing that work for most of Africa, which wants that kind of an assistance. And India is contributing its little bit. So elsewhere, particularly the island countries, all of whom have serious climate-related challenges. For India to participate in them, in their development, just shows how responsibly we want to use every, rupee of what we collect as tax. So if DEA has done it, my digression starts here. Similar is the recall. Similar is the recall by every department, which again were equally hesitant about what have we got to do with it. All right, we'll keep doing our work. Department of Expenditure. Yesterday, I actually waxed a lot eloquently on it to say the single nodal account which the department has brought in actually has made a big difference in the way public finance, money, taxpayers' money reaches at different stages to the states and further down to the level of the village. You're able to see just in time money moving and also transparently see where it is available. Again, utilizing technology to benefit the common man. And be accountable, be transparent, be open about what you're doing. There are no longer secrets which any government can afford to do it. If you want to keep the technology also with you, you're already transparent enough. So if DEA could tell you two different stories of how the fundamentals of the economy and Department of Expenditure could tell you what the money is being sent and how much is being sent at what point in time and to who. I think, sorry about the rest of you, I seem to be addressing the media only. I'm trying to recall all those stories which media can capture. I'm trying to recall the stories which media should actually give space for. While other interesting, sensational things also need to be said, these are not sensational, but these are actual stories of development. And I think, therefore, I'm so grateful the Honorable Prime Minister said 75 years, recall what has happened in this country is the message. All of us will have to recall how this country has come today to be where it is. Coming back to the DA again, and also looking at the way in which we have the SEBI narrating the story, we have the NSDL narrating the story of how investments have helped and how investments will have to be built, on how investor education is so much important, and how digital tools are being readied to help people to inform themselves on how to access the market so that the savings that they have is not just going to be lying somewhere with some petty returns. Today you have a very prospering stock market where you can put the money and earn a lot more in a very open fashion. It's not about companies which are badly governed. It's actually the story of companies who are more transparently and well governed. The more these information about good, well-governed companies come out, investor is interested. He or she wants to come there. And that's the story in the last 2 years, when even in spite of COVID, even in spite of such uncertainties, Indian retail investors have found very legitimate online ways in which they have accessed the market. And therefore, I would think it is more for NSDL and SEBI to take this story forward. SEBI in particular, not just as regulator, but SEBI with that instrument as investor education being one of the very important stories to take forward. So in all this, is it just the story of recapitulating what has happened in the last 75 years through multilateral funding and through the SEBI and through NSDL? No, it's a lot more. There's so much that I can say about the way in which the government has been responsive. Government has responded every bit during this crisis. But I will just take 2 examples, both based on recent studies. In fact, 3, I think. KPMG, one of the big 4 about which all of us talk, big 4, they also do studies. I'm quoting one of them, which KPMG together with the KfW, which is a German aid agency, had looked at Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana and said, actually, these are very important lines for us to recall. That study shows that because of GKY, Garib Kalyan Yojana, the probability of cutting down the consumption of utilities has actually come down by 75% because of PM Garib Kalyan Yojana. Across all sources of people who responded to the study and across all the parts of the country, destinations and locations all taken on board, 75% of people had said that because of PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, the probability of cutting down on consumption utilities was reduced by 75%. The reason why I'm quoting these 3 studies, one which I'm mentioning now, is when government looks at targeted approach of providing assistance and takes the input from the ground and does so quickly, in time, and in a very open fashion, the impact is there for all of us to see. So the Garib Kalyan Yojana, which became a part of the announcements made during 2020, the COVID-affected year, is now confirming that idea that if you gave it in time, gave it targeted, it bears good result. So if people had responded, that 75% probability of cutting down consumption utilities was there. That is to speak about the success of PM GKY. And also the cash support which was given during that time, both in cash and also in kind transfers, reduced the probability of cutting down on food items by 76% across all states. So overall, the respondents of that study by KFW and KPMG has shown that assistance under the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana schemes reduce the probability of borrowing money by 67% of all respondents. So it is one thing to talk about actively give money in the hands of the people, but a totally different thing when the targeted approach which Government of India took through the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, respondents did not have to borrow money to live their lives. They lived their lives with dignity. So that is a study by completely outside of the government agency. I want to quote it today so that that's a point which all of us can take a certain level of comfort from. The second, on which a lot of studies have come out, even today one of the newspapers, a business newspaper, carries a full report on what this emergency credit liquidity guarantee scheme has done. Again, a targeted approach. Again, an approach to help the small and medium MSMEs. And just to give you the figure to start with, as of March 2022, loans sanctioned under the ECLGS scheme, which was fully guaranteed scheme from the Government of India, crossed 3.19 lakh crores. Sanctioned amount has crossed 3.19 lakh crores. The scope of ECGLS has been now extended till 2023. So it started in 2020. We found it to be an effective instrument through which help is reaching MSMEs, and that was extended to 22. Now it is extended to 23. So the hand-holding in time, which is what today's newspaper has a complete story on, hand-holding which the government extended during the time of the pandemic has actually kept many of them above the water floating. Otherwise, many of them had the risk of closing down. So that has helped as well. On that, there are several studies. Today's newspaper carries one of them. But the fact is, again, a targeted approach, not splashing money, but making sure it reaches those who desperately need. Again, a design, a work, and an implementation monitoring done by this ministry along with the Department of Financial Services. And the last one, which I would like to highlight, is again something which we kept the poor in mind, their health requirements in mind, and making sure that the poor don't have to spend cash to ensure that they get into hospital or pay for the medicine or pay for the bed or any of that. So the Ayushman Bharat, again a very well-tailored program. There is a study, I am quoting from that study, and this study is by a professor from the Indian School of Business, Professor Prasanna Tantri. He says that this study says, this Ayushman Bharat program shows that apart from other benefits, and I quote here, apart from other benefits, the implementation of the Ayushman Bharat program is associated with a 21% decline in out-of-pocket health expenditure, 21% decline in out-of-pocket health expenditure, and an 8% reduction in the tendency to borrow for emergency health purposes. So 8% reduction in the tendency to borrow emergency loans for health purposes among poor households. Now, there are many more things I would like to add on here, but the fact is, I've just taken three examples where agencies outside of the government have assessed them after 2 full years and said very clearly that these have borne the right kind of results, and because of that, those sections which are otherwise vulnerable are today able to stand up and say, yes, we are trying to come out of this situation. So a Department of Economic Affairs, which